Hi, welcome to Broken and Brilliant. I'm Carrie O'Toole with Carrie O'Toole Ministries, and I'm joined by my friend Mary Ellen Mann.
Hi there.
Nice to have you again.
Well, it's nice to be here.
Thanks so much for coming.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Mary Ellen and I have been friends for a long time, and Mary Ellen is a counselor. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do, what your clientele is like, how you got into that even?
Sure. So basically, as a licensed clinical social worker, I've been working about 20 years in the field. And I tell people a lot that I backed into working with trauma. It was not something I set out to do. Mostly was working with teenagers who were in residential care, out of dealing with crises of all kinds, usually drug-related and dealing with academic problems and needing a new place and a new start. But I ended up doing this and my outpatient work, and more from working with teenagers and just dealing with, say, family reconstruction and communication and trust building and all of that, to realizing that people that I was working with were really dealing with significant trauma. Trauma has been usually defined as something that people have PTSD. PTSD is post-traumatic stress disorder, as many people know nowadays with all of the wars we've been dealing with, and the recent issue of combat soldiers returning from the various locations where they've been doing incredible work for us. And they certainly qualify as having PTSD, but that is not the only population dealing with this problem. What we're learning is that people who have gone through sexual trauma, and I'll define why I use that term instead of childhood sexual abuse in a minute, is that they have also experienced something that's been overwhelming them physically and emotionally for a while, and with very few resources typically intact, they do not have the ability to overpower or stand up for themselves and get the help they need. So they are very much trapped in their experiences. So sexual trauma is a term I use to reach beyond the idea of childhood sexual abuse, although that's a very important population and certainly a significant reality as a child dealing with sexual abuse. Just the array of disorganization that happens in a person's life no doubt qualifies them as having PTSD. I'm also realizing that people over 18 are encountering sexual trauma sometimes for the first time. And so we have a range of issues going on in interpersonal violence, sexual violence, and that can include boyfriends to husbands. We have people dealing with rapes in colleges, roofie-based drugs where they end up waking up with their clothes inside out and they know that they were sexually used in that night but have no memory of it, and or in a sense concretely don't have a memory of it, but they know something happened to them in a physical, kind of instinctive way. We have people who are on business trips being sexually harassed, bosses that won't pay them, or professors that won't give them grades, or threaten to reconstruct their reputations and not allow them internships. I've worked with several women dealing with that. So anyhow, we have an array of types of sexual trauma that are out there where people's chances and opportunities are being completely threatened. And so I wanted to include a term that included all of those different concerns.
And so the term that you use is sexual violation.
Sexual trauma or
sexual
violation
trauma.
certainly is a fair, interchangeable concept. So yes.
Well, as we've gotten to know each other through the years, we've talked several different times about things that just kind of drive us crazy.
Right.
And I thought, you know, I bet we're not the only ones. I bet some of these things drive other people crazy too. And so I thought maybe we could have a conversation about what are some of the phrases people use,
Sure.
or the questions people ask, and I think a lot of times they're well-meaning. It's not that they're trying to harm somebody, but I'd like to talk about, first of all, what it is sometimes that they say, and then maybe why they say
Those
them.
are great questions.
I think that's interesting to
Sure.
figure out. So what do you hear your clients reporting?
You know, again, probably well-meaning people are incredulous about what's happened. So that's going to get to the why, and I'll explain that a little bit later. The ways people handle this is, what did you do? You know, if your boss, your professor did this to you, if your husband or boyfriend did this to you, if you're being stalked, if you were raped at the party, what did you do? What happened? In other words, how did you participate in this situation.
How did you bring it on?
And how did you bring it on? And I think it comes across, obviously, to the person who is suffering this event as they asked for it. And that's what starts to build what Brene Brown calls, this is not my idea, so I want to give her credit for this, is the shame web. We start to say, well, you must have done something, because people just don't out and out do this to each other. So, and I understand that. I think that there is a lot of, until you study mental health, abnormal psych, you don't realize that there are sociopaths out there, people who truly don't care about another person. The whole schema of interaction is built on the idea of domination and taking helpless or kind or compassionate people and using it against them. And once they start to set limits, they're punished. So, or they don't know how to set limits, or they're not in a situation where they feel like they can. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that's, yes, due to alcohol, but if I drink a lot, does that mean I should be raped tonight? I mean, so if we really break down the logic behind our own anxiety and about why someone could be this evil to someone else, and we just kind of take a deep breath and say, people can be this dark. This really does exist. Mm-hmm. And I think we don't want to accept that. So we want to help the perpetrator through their problems. We want to pay attention to the fact the perpetrator couldn't have meant this. Say a youth pastor.
It must be misunderstood.
It must have been misunderstood. So some of the phrasings are, are you sure you did everything you could? Are you sure that you didn't ask for it in some way by how you were, dressing? I've seen you talk to people and you usually put your hand on their arms. Are you sure you're not sending flirtation vibes? So there are these ways people will try to understand and rationalize domination, people truly tricking people into these scenarios of being overpowered. We also have the issue of Stockholm Syndrome, and a lot of people don't want to pay attention to this either. But Stockholm Syndrome came from an elaborate issue that took place in the late 70s, where these people came and took over a bank in Stockholm, and long story short is they got all of their captives to feel sorry for them. I'm so sorry, I'm going to have to kill you, I'm going to have to torture you, I'm going to have to do these things to you. And so the captors ended up even marrying some of the people once they were out from underneath this problem and they were in jail. So this idea of feeling sorry for perpetrators has been going on forever.
So the abused
and that's a part
end
of
up feeling
the
sorry
confusion
for the people
Absolutely.
who abused them.
Yes, because usually there's a seduction beneath the sexual trauma. Usually it is not total strangers, usually. And so with children, 93% of childhood sexual abuse happens at the hand of someone they know that's known to the family. 40-something%, because I say 40-something because I've seen various statistics, happen within the family. Mm-hmm. So these children are then made to feel sorry for that, those people. Then you've got boyfriends and, colleagues and professors and husbands and bosses and managers, and those people can draw the person who is compassionate into a scenario of feeling sorry for them, and then use that compassion as sort of a ploy to get to them. And we don't recognize this unless we study this.
How does that work?
With which part?
Well, so I'm thinking like with children. Mm-hmm. Let's say this is happening within their home, or it's happening with a neighbor or some trusted family friend or something. Mm-hmm. I'm imagining that child would be terrified that if they speak up, the family could fall apart.
Sure.
And I'll be blamed. Uh-huh. And so I'm just thinking through some of those scenarios that you talked about.
Right.
What methods do these people use? Because, for me,
well, let's take a youth pastor, for example.
Okay.
Usually there's a whole lot of language going on in a church setting. So we have, and it could be innocuous, in some situations, but then it can be a seduction in another situation. So, we're meant to we need to love on these kids, and if you've been abused already, then you will hear a pastor say this or a youth pastor say this, and as a congregant feel slimed. Or feel like this is a bit gross. You know, why do I hate the term loved on? Sometimes pastors will say, you know, God is using you to take care of his flock. You need to be aware that he's going to be using you. You know, we have songs that say, break me and mold me and kind of make me into you, what you want me to be. And that's a very innocuous statement. But if you have felt manipulated and used and overpowered by somebody, these can be supercharged statements. Then you go into this culture where that seems to be normal. And that's normative, I guess, we'll say this. And a person says, but I've had my boundaries crossed, but I guess that's what this culture is. It's a boundary crossing culture. It's kill them with kindness. You know, there are these other phrases that, again, innocuous in a lot of situations, but if you have a really codependent person who's built, if you will, exposed to a lot of Stockholm Syndrome, feeling sorry for violating people, then we have a mess on our hands. And so it's very easy for the youth pastor to pick up on that and then use that as part of their seduction towards the child in their youth group. Now, a lot of people aren't trained in this, and that's where we have a chance to start training people. And I'm doing a training for a church in the beginning of June, and it's all child ministry, youth ministry, college ministry, and of course the senior pastors. And so I'm telling them, please stop using this language. Also, with regard to, so that's kind of the how it happens. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of people who are then coming. So besides let me swing back to the initial question of what is it that people say that can be so destructive? So they question the intent of the person who's victimized. Well, what were you doing to create this issue, to bring this upon yourself? But I hear a lot of times too, well, it's really important to forgive. You know, make sure that you are forgiving and forgetting. You know, and we have to stop saying that to a general populace if congregants, because you have a lot of people in there who've never once stood up for themselves, and yet they're trying to connect with their identity in Christ, which is filled with standing up for ourselves. Christ was killed because he stood up for himself. And so people are saying, so which is it? Do I not stand up for myself and forgive and forget? Or do I stand up for myself, go through a time and passage where I let this situation really inform my wisdom? Maybe that means anger. Maybe that means I'm okay and peaceful. I don't know, but can I be accepted by the church with that range of emotions? Sometimes I might be really hurt. Sometimes I might be fine.
Sometimes I'm really ticked off.
And sometimes I just can't eat crow anymore. And will the church stand with me, or will they want this wrapped up really in a neat bow? So Dan Allender says very perceptively, Christians hate reality. And I have to say, we have to accept, if we're going to grow our church and our body and our believing nation across the world, our believing family, we have to say what you're saying is true. It never should have happened to you. You never deserved it. I want to take care of you. How can I take care of you? What was the safest, most respectful way I can stand with you in this? Whether it's knitting a blanket or sending a meal or hanging out or going on a walk or praying through this or never praying through it or whatever works for you, I have to be here with you. I want to be here with you. I care about you, and I'm not afraid of your pain. So there's no bow that's going to wrap this baby up. It's the process of every day turning through the different realities. And when people who are hurting go, you're not afraid of my pain, they heal so quickly. They heal so quickly. Can you imagine a surgeon going, oh my gosh, that's too scary for me? Or a doctor saying that's too gross? We would never get anywhere. And yet the church is saying that to people all the time. That's too gross, that's too involved. So we're going to go ahead and just, even though this is like a torn ACL and a bone sticking out in the wrong direction and piercing through the skin, we'd like to Band-Aid that and give you a bouquet of flowers and a hot meal. And that is just not going to do it. Right. We have to truly stand with these people as they correct these injuries. Now, it is their job to correct these injuries. We can't do that for them.
Yes, you actually had a statement that you made in about your book, and I hope I can find it here. Something about it being, okay, sexual violation was not your choice, but recovery is.
Yeah.
And I would say that about any type of trauma,
sure, absolutely.
any type of hurt.
Absolutely.
Oh my goodness, it was not your fault. But then when you're trying to recover, you're trying to heal, and everybody's trying to find a reason for it, or they're using little platitude statements to...
Or they're looking for ways you asked for it. I mean, women I'm working with have been cheated on by people they've known for 40 years. They have STDs. These are realities. And that people look at them and go, this is their first question. How did you not know? It's not, this was so dark. I cannot believe someone took advantage of you. This never should have happened to you. I'm so sorry. Okay? They say, how could you not know? And I think again, we are always looking as human beings for a reason something happened.
Well, and don't you think that that's the person who's asking? It's almost a way of, they're separating themselves from that person because they're thinking, if this could have happened to you, this could happen to me. So maybe I would have known.
Right.
So how did you not know? Because I want to make sure I know so this doesn't happen. And they don't express their fear. Wouldn't it be better to say, oh my goodness, I can't believe this happened to you. I am so sorry.
What can I do? You
and
are
then maybe
so precious to
through
me.
the process,
I love you. I like you. I don't know God's plan with this at all, but I'm going to say I'm ticked. I'm questioning a lot of what this means for you. I'm hurting for you. Because here's the thing. It's the person who's victimized that needs to say, I'm ready to forgive. And we go, okay, that's great. How can I help you?
With that?
How can I help you? Or what do you need from me? I want to hear what you're thinking, okay? But the damage is when we tell people, you should forgive. It's a great thing when people say, I want to lose weight. But it is damaging if we go up to someone and say, you need to lose weight. But do we see how the church justifies certain complete, not insolent, because that's too strong of a word, but they leave people feeling so disrespected and overrun, and then we wonder, why don't people feel safe in the church? Because nobody's asking the question of, how can I help you? This is overwhelming. I can't imagine how you might feel. I'm a therapist. I say that to people as I mean it. I don't know how they feel. I think it's really rude to say, I know exactly how you feel. I think it's rude. I can say, I can only imagine how you feel. I've been through something somewhat similar to that. As I would say that more as a friend, not as a therapist, but I want to, but more importantly, what happened? How can I be here for you?
Yeah.
And so,
as they move on, if they're wanting somebody to talk to who could relate, then you may get together and say, what does it feel like to you? This is what it felt like to me. Do you have similar symptoms?
Yeah.
And at that point, you can offer something. But when they're just in the early stages of healing, and all they hear is, what did you do to cause this? God will work this all out for good.
Yeah, He has a plan. He's teaching you something.
He's teaching you something. So let's talk about that for a minute. God must be teaching you a lesson.
Dun, dun, dun. And so that's like from Phineas and Ferb, I think. I think it's so patronizing. I don't know how that would work in any other context, and yet as I think, again, misdirected, anxious Christians will say things that they believe are scripturally guided, and yet,
because that is a verse, and people, I think, want to use Bible scriptures to comfort somebody. But they're jumping so far ahead.
Right.
Yes, absolutely. Can God use that? Is there a plan? Absolutely. But what the heck happened? And can we park there
and
for
again,
a little
that's
bit?
just not our place to say that. We cannot walk up to someone and say, it's time for you to lose weight. It's time for you to manage your money better. It's time for you to be a better son, parent, husband. This is what you need to do. We have to say, what do you think the problem is, and where can I start getting involved, and how can I be a part of helping you? I don't like questions that are super vague, like, let me know what I can do to help. And I actually took that from an article from someone recovering from cancer. She said, if you ask me what you can do to help, I probably won't answer you. And I thought, that's a lot the same with the people I've worked with in my own issues I've gone through. If someone just wants to throw out, let me know how I can help, I probably won't get back to them. If they come up with 2 or 3 things that they can do, I'd like to check in with you every day for the next couple of weeks. Is that okay with you? I'm likely to say, sure, that's really sweet. If they say, I can bring a meal over by Thursday, but not before then, and I don't have much else to give you right now, I wish I did, a person will feel very comforted.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Throw out a couple things you want to do to get involved that really match the pace in life you've got going on. Don't overcommit and underdeliver. Mm-hmm. That's a big no-no for all of us as people, but certainly when you're reaching out to people who are hurting. But this idea of God has a plan for you. You need to lose weight. You need to forgive. You ought to be a better mother. Whatever. But God is teaching you something. You should be learning it by now. Goodness, this is a big one. You grieve long enough. You better start changing because God is going to teach you a lesson again if you're not careful. Those are all completely out of hand. Or another one is, anger is going to make you hard. It's time for you to get over your anger. These are all things, again, that are said in fear. They're said because they have this anxiety about their own pain. That's what I've learned. And so they want to wrap this thing up in a box and wrap a bow on it and then ship it off to something really far away.
I think I found
hopefully that gives you some impression of what
absolutely
is helpful and what is not helpful.
If somebody was telling me that my anger is enough and I need to deal with it, I know I would get angry.
Okay.
That would make me even angrier.
Right.
Rather than helping me with my anger, you're just,
Right. Because what if somebody just said you wouldn't be angry unless you felt like there was still something that was crossing boundaries with you or something that was still happening that was hurting you? What if somebody said that?
Yeah. Wow, you would understand me.
Right. And
then you'd give me the peace and the space to be, and you'd say, wow, it's okay to be angry.
Right.
Let's work this through.
Right. Because I accept you. And you wouldn't be feeling something for no reason.
And feeling something for no reason is kind of about your book, too. Let's talk about that for just a little bit.
Okay.
So tell us about your new book. What's the title, first of all?
Okay. It's called From Pain to Power, Overcoming Sexual Trauma and Reclaiming Your True Identity. And it'll be out September 22nd, 2015. And it's published by a great publishing house in Colorado Springs, and they're working really hard with me on this. So, yes, and it basically weaves together several concepts, and that is that I am also a survivor of sexual trauma from childhood through college, through young adulthood, had various events take place where my gut instincts were basically scrambled eggs. Like I couldn't figure out up from down who I was, what I needed. The formation that's supposed to happen in childhood never took place. Not never, but not enough, that's for sure. I would say I got about 20% of the growth done there where I was probably needing a ton more. And then obviously because I had no gut instincts heading into adult life in college and beyond, it was very difficult to understand how to take care of myself, protect myself, and certainly what is an identity. That was a constant question of mine. And so there's that, and then of course working with this clinically as a therapist and the great value of seeing the different needs people have had, what's been useful in helping people process through and get better. And not in a way that's in their head, but get better in a way where they truly feel physically lighter and stronger.
I'm a different person.
I'm a different person. Yeah. And the identity piece has always hit me really hard. I don't want to be a victim anymore. I hear that a lot. And having churned through that, it was a very random event. Basically, I was taking a childhood sexual abuse prevention course in South Carolina with Darkness to Light, and it hit me, gosh, not only are these people just not victims, but they're not just survivors, they're princess warriors. And the idea of a princess warrior is that we're born with a royal birthright. We're made by God's hand. And if God is royal and we're made by him, then aren't we royal? And if that's the case, then these females are truly royal and therefore princesses. Not hoity-toity princesses, but warriors who've been involved in a battle certainly they didn't ask for, but a battle that nonetheless was attempting to take over their meaning and their purpose and to shut them down, so that rather than being a pilot or a nurse or a teacher or doctor, they took lesser opportunities, not believing what they were really built to do. And not only that in terms of profession, but just anything. Did they like to cook? Did they like to paint? You know, are they social? Are they quiet? Who are they really? And can they fulfill that purpose? If we really rallied the voices of these people, the world would be different. We would be much more vocal. Anyhow, so the idea of a warrior was the fact that something wants them hurting and silent, which means that they must be that important to the kingdom to be defeated or attacked so early, and not defeated, but attacked. And so I plugged that piece in as well. And then obviously looking at the reality of God and how Jesus came to earth, and he too was a warrior who was attacked for his truth. And you know, you and I have talked about his journey to the cross and how much violation did he maybe go through. And I think that if he understands all sin and he understands every violation and every trauma, you know, that Jesus may even understand sexual trauma, we don't know. I thought that was a really interesting question you raised a while ago. And that we worship a God who engages all of this as an advocate, as a hero, but as a quiet strength. And I think people who have been hurt by sexual trauma, there's just a lot of sensitivities about power and people using their positions of power to manipulate. And I think Jesus is the ultimate example of someone who does not do that. And I really needed to know that in my recovery. Do I believe in a God that just doesn't care and he's trying to teach me lessons? Or did I believe in a God that had free will intersect with his sovereignty? We're just doing the best we can between those two. And who is he and his character and his identity? So the book addresses doubt. Mm-hmm. It addresses anger towards God, and doubting God, and understanding that this book will not judge those sorts of concerns with God. So hopefully it offers a guide for people to process that. And then at the very end, it talks about what can we do? How can we interact with this as a spouse, as a parent, community member, church leader, youth serving organization leader. And I'm really excited about that portion because I've learned so much from my own experiences and the experiences of the people I've worked with. So it's packed with to-dos and how to say something, and, so you don't have to just make it up.
Yeah, and so if you know somebody who's been hurting,
it's a real tactical guide.
Absolutely. You may even be recognizing, oh, those are questions I used to ask. Absolutely.
I didn't know. And we didn't know. Okay. And that's why I tell people, I know this world, but I don't know the world of racism. I don't know the world of classism or immigrating into our nation as an immigrant. I don't know those experiences. And so I can't educate people on that. I don't have the same sensitivities as someone who's an immigrant, who's dealt with racism, who's dealt with classism. So this is just what I know. And so I try to stay very, very much like there's an even playing field. I can't be a part of the shame web, and make people feel bad. All I can do, the point of it all is to guide people to be successful and powerful in the spirit with this, so that we're not losing believers because we just didn't know better. Right. And now that we know better, we do better. Right.
Well, and for everybody, whether you have been doing some of those things in the past, learn from it.
Yeah.
And move forward.
Perfect.
And learn a different way to be.
It's never too late to say, I'm sorry. Hey, I didn't address this right. I
didn't even know. I thought I was doing.
I didn't even know. And
it's all I ever heard.
I thought I was helping and I wasn't, and here's what I'd like to do, here's what I want to do differently. And
absolutely.
So there's just tons of good that we can do in this.
One other thing that I think maybe you even brought to my attention was the idea of spiritual abuse. And I just think that when you tag that one on to any of the other things that have gone on, and spiritual abuse basically is using God
to shame people.
As a weapon.
To shame people.
To shame
people.
To control, so that you don't have to enter into what they're dealing with.
Right.
It's a way that you
Right.
assert something over them. But what ends up happening with that, it's such a disgusting type of abuse, because
Right.
God is the one who can heal any of the other abuses.
Right.
And then when he's used to separate you
Yeah.
from the healing that could actually
Right.
be there for you, where do you go now?
Right.
Oh, so
Right.
that one just...
And so the book talks a lot about that. And because I was certainly, again, with people who were just not educated on how to respond to this, was absolutely every single thing I told you was something I had actually heard myself. So, and much worse, frankly. But, and I laughed just because I don't think anyone went like this. Today's the day I'm going to make that Mary Ellen pay or make her feel bad. It was done in ignorance. And I laugh now because, I mean, God, just like he cut off all the shame web stickiness and it was like, no, just run, girl, run. So, I mean, I never really believed Jesus was a part of that, which is kind of a miracle. Now, I had other issues with him about doubting him, but I didn't think he was about shaming me. And so, I just count that as a huge blessing. I don't know where I would be today if I did.
Right. Well, hopefully
Anyhow.
you would still be able to help others who that was part of theirs
Right.
as well.
Right.
You know,
That's
because
what I do.
for
I
other
get
people,
it.
yeah.
I get it.
Wow. Well, we are going to add a couple of links to this website. Look in the
Okay.
description.
Okay.
It will be, let's see, we'll have a link that is you talking about just the description of your book.
Okay.
Correct?
Yeah, that's great.
We'll
yeah.
have that video.
Okay.
And then we'll also have a link
Oh, yes,
to
right,
your,
the one I mentioned. Uh-huh.
yeah, and then you'll have a link to your website, tell them about the website.
So the website's www.lastbattle.com, and the premise of the website is that you have an online community where you can seek some resources, prevention strategies, read up on blogs. We have a monthly newsletter. You can sign up for that. And we have several videos at the bottom describing the purpose of Last Battle, my book, and as well the reality of this issue called Voices from the Battlefield. That documentary is there. The newsletter is also called Voices from the Battlefield. We also stream several blogs. One's from Darkness to Light, and the other is from Boz Chivijian, who's doing incredible amounts of work. He's the grandson of Billy Graham, and he's done incredible work doing helping Christian environments catch up with this issue and respond very strategically and lovingly to the children who are coming forward having been abused in church settings, in Christian environments. And so he is the executive director and law professor. He's a law professor at Liberty University and former prosecutor in Florida. And he also is the executive director now of Grace, which is Godly Response to Abuse in the Christian Environment. He's actually endorsed the book. He's an amazing person. Please go to his blog as well. We have Twitter going on with lots of good followers and really interesting
I like that.
feedback.
We have Twitter going on.
Yeah, I don't know, Twitter. I don't know. We were tweeting on. Somebody
about a
needs to
bird.
stop. So there we go with my technical ignorance and social media ignorance.
You don't have to know it all, Mary Ellen.
We are.
You've got
Thank
the
you.
other stuff.
See, I know. It's all about content, right? So yeah, and then we have a store where you can buy jewelry, Princess Warrior jewelry, and eventually buy the book. And we're just really wanting to rename and reframe this and have an empowering, spirit-led message. So,
well, and I just want to say, if this is your issue, or it's the issue of somebody that you know and love, or even if it's not, this can translate to almost any other kind of trauma, any other type of hurt. You know, if you know somebody who's going through cancer, like you said,
right,
this
or
would
has
be
lost
great.
a child,
or has lost a child.
The significant
divorce, all of these different kinds of things.
Significant losses, absolutely. Because the core of sexual trauma is really betrayal. And so when you think about all the different situations where betrayal of the body betraying itself with cancer, or betrayal of a spousal relationship or a work situation. So Yes, I hope it's an
Absolutely.
approachable site for anyone going through these various things. So anyway, thanks for letting me talk about that for a little bit.
It's been great. Thanks
Yeah.
for coming on
Yeah.
again, and I know we'll continue this. We'll
Yes,
we'll
absolutely.
keep going because
You're
there's
doing
more to
great work,
talk about.
Carrie.
So thank you.
Yes.
And for everybody else, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time here on Broken and Brilliant.